Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the Community Environment Board. This is our first time on Teams, so I'm sure we're all getting used to it now. We'll see how it goes. In terms of apologies, I've got apologies from Councillor Lebrun, and that's all I've got, unless there's any more.
There are also apologies from Councillor Chambers and Councillor Mawson as well.
Councillor Chambers and Councillor Mawson. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Rose. I'd like to say welcome to Councillor Jens and Councillor Mawson, all those not here, who've replaced, and thank Councillor Lebrun and Councillor Deakin for their time on this committee. Thank you very much. Just before we get into the main meeting, I would like to take time to recognise the very sad news of the death of Lorna Durvix. I'm sure more formal recognition will take place on her achievements, but she did so much for the agenda of this committee that I think we should mark it. She was passionate and knowledgeable about the history and heritage of Atherstone in particular and North Warwickshire more generally. And as we all know, her energy and commitment led to the development of the Visitors Centre and indeed to Meadow Street Gardens, which will be mentioned in this agenda, on this agenda too. On a personal note, I've known Lorna since the 1980s. We both sang in the Atherstone Choral Society. Unlike me, Lorna was a very talented singer and continued singing until very recently. I then knew her through the Atherstone Civic Society and most recently now, obviously, as a councillor. She will be very sadly missed, and our thoughts are with Neil and the family. And I think we should just take a minute to ponder on her achievements and on her life. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So thank you very much, everyone. And just, we have no public participation today. So moving on to minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 9th of March, which seems a different world now. But nevertheless, if there's any comments, if not, anyone wishes to say anything, otherwise we will just accept those unless there's any objections to that. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. So let's move my papers. Thank you. So moving on then to agenda item 5, which is the budgetary control report, which you can see there on your papers. I'll just ask Simon if there's any things he'd like to highlight on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, nothing particularly in respect of the papers. There's a slight update concerning leisure facilities. The income position April through to the end of September. The income loss, we've circulated this information to the board, but it's about £583,000, that income loss figure.
Thank you. Are there any questions on that? Oh, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I know we touched on this at Exec Board previously and at full council, but I think this is an example of why the government funding formula for local authorities needs to be urgently reviewed. I think at the start of the pandemic, the Prime Minister made it clear that local councils needed to spend what they needed to spend to keep people safe and to ensure that we sort of reduce the spread of COVID as much as we possibly could. And if you look at the table in 6.1, there's a shortfall of £455,230 between the additional expenditure and the expected COVID-19 grant. So I think the government really needs to take a long, hard look at the funding. I think COVID's going to go on for a long time, and I think small councils like North Warwickshire Borough Council, if things carry on like they are, we're going to struggle to survive. It really is sort of at breaking point now. So I just wanted to comment on that, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Can I just ask if there's any other opportunity to bid for funding from one of the officers? This is, I think we've got about 2/3 of the amount that we've actually lost, if you like, in leisure services. So, Sue. Oh, it's Sue. Sue, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we will have 2 further opportunities to put a claim in for any income we lose. The £727,000 that are highlighted in 6.1 relate to the first 4 months of the year and relate to our income for that, but we will have another couple of opportunities relating to income within this financial year.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, hopefully, you know, we will recover more of that, particularly the income that we've lost in the leisure services. Are there any other questions?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
just obviously, I think mitigating any of the expenditure we've lost is obviously very important. But moving forwards, and I'm very aware that the future is incredibly uncertain, do we have any risk assessments or any concept of how we can avoid the worst of what's to come in the future as well? A plan B kind of thing, just in case, obviously, there may be another lockdown, we may end up in similar circumstances again. Is there anything that we can do, or are there plans in place to mitigate any of that?
Yes, Simon, have you got any comments on that?
Through you, Chair. Clearly, I'll be corrected by the Chief Executive who's with us, but corporately, we have a series of issues that we're currently investigating to minimise the impacts on the authorities and to look at the risks associated with the pandemic right across the work that we're doing. So that is a live piece of work, and obviously it's a piece of work that we're undertaking in conjunction with partners as well. So corporately there will be further reports on this issue to members.
Thank you. Any other questions? My screen. Thank you very much. So we are asked to note this report and request any further information. Obviously, we'll be getting updates on both the funding and how we're going to organise ourselves. So thanks very much. So I'll take that as accepted unless anyone indicates otherwise. Thank you very much. So moving on then to item 6, which is the service improvement plan. Thank you. Simon, have you got anything you'd like to say?
Through you, Chair, just very, very briefly, the board will obviously be aware that we update on work in respect to the leisure facilities against the approved service improvement plan at each of your meetings. Clearly, you adopted a new service improvement plan at your meeting in March, and then we all know what happened virtually instantly, that we were required to close and didn't reopen again until the back end of July. So we felt the need to revise that service improvement plan, and that's attached at Appendix C. And last week we circulated to the board an end of September update on progress in respect of that service improvement plan. The one other issue to draw to your attention, we've spoken to the board a couple of times about the possibility of a very minor revision to the Christmas and New Year opening hours. That work also got curtailed slightly by the pandemic. We've just picked up the consultation work associated with that, but we don't have another board meeting until January. So if there are to be any changes subject to agreement by the board, we'd need to make those in consultation with yourself, the Vice Chairman, and the opposition spokesperson. Happy to take any questions, Chair, either myself or Russell, who's with us.
Thank you. Could you indicate you've got any questions? Councillor Gosling?
Yeah, I think mostly I just big well done, actually, just to note the amazing work that was done by a lot of the the leisure services staff and the community development work staff, and the flexibility and adaptability over the last few months, and then to be able to actually put this service level agreement, this SPI, into effect and actually get back onto track and start to build that up again, I think has been a really good piece of work. Well done.
Any other questions? Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo what Jodie had said in terms of the sort of redeployment of staff and how hard staff and officers have worked through what have been very difficult times. And it was just to bring up in relation to KPIs. I know Councillor Fowler brought it up at Exec Board, and we had planned last year, as he said earlier in the meeting, Chair, it seems a world away, sort of pre-March, pre-COVID, that we'd agreed to meet up and sort of review the KPIs and sort of. So I just wondered if we could progress that at some point moving forward and sort of get those reviewed and sort of because I know councillors on both sides have sort of agreed that there's room for improvement there in terms of some of the wording and how they're used. So yeah, I was just going to ask if that could.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Chief Executive.
Yeah, just to pick that point up from Executive Board and not just the last Executive Board. I am discussing with colleagues around presenting these in a different way. I think we're going to do this in two stages. One is how you like it presented, and then what is it you would like to be presented. So we're just working through some mock-ups, some suggestions about how we present this in a better way, and then we'll have the task and finish group, the working group, set up in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jens.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo what Councillors Gosling and Rose said, and to recognise the tremendous effort of the staff during the COVID period, and what they've done is really, really great. And if on 4.7 on the report, I could just ask about the community engagement events that took place last month. How well attended were they, and did they succeed in increasing the number of and retaining members and increasing the number of members?
Thank you. Who's best placed to answer that one? Russell, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, the events went quite well as some early engagement events to get people involved. The Know Your Numbers, which is a blood pressure awareness sort of campaign, saw 21 blood pressures taken across the service, as well as giving people some general advice and booklets on how to improve their health. The National Fitness Day saw 27 people participate in exercise for like a fitness medley session, which was like a combination of our different classes put together for people to sort of sample and do, as well as people taking part in gym challenges, and some people do like a bleep test as well. And then lastly, the Macmillan Coffee Morning raised £130 for charity. All of the events did obviously get people into a facility that hadn't been in before, and they did get people talking to our staff. I haven't got stats on exact referrals, but in terms of community engagement, getting people involved, etc., it certainly achieved that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? All right, thank you. So going back to the recommendation then, that the board approves or otherwise amends the revised draft service improvement plan, through which operational financial performance will be managed and monitored through to March 21. And we hear that from Exec Board there will be a task and finish group to look at those as well. And secondly, that in consultation with the Director of Leisure, Community Development, authority be delegated to the Chairman, Vice Chairman and Opposition Spokesman for the Board to amend the Christmas and New Year opening hours of the leisure facilities, subject to there being no significant adverse implications for levels of community use of the centres. Can I have a proposal?
Councillor Les-Smith proposed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. And seconded?
Happy to second, Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And again, I'll take that as agreed unless anyone indicates differently or asks for the vote. Right, thank you very much. We'll move on. Thank you. So moving on to item 7, which is the Green Space Strategy Report on page 46, for those of you trying to follow the agenda electronically. Thank you. You can see quite a lot of activity in this area. We've agreed the Green Space Strategy. This is what we've done and are doing to meet the objectives of that strategy. So again, I'll turn to Simon to see if there's anything he'd like to highlight.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I do that, can I just raise a couple of issues that have been raised by members further to the circulation of the report? Councillor Lebrun raised an issue about green recovery plans, and I've been able to get back to her and explain that the Tame Valley Wetlands Partnership has had an expression of interest for heritage lottery funding approved. So they're now working on a detailed funding submission, and that's associated with green recovery plan work that might lead to some improvements in and around Coal End Park. So that's positive. And Councillor Farrell asked that we bring to the board's attention the work undertaken by Polesworth Parish Council to improve play facilities in both Birchmoor and at Station Street in Polesworth, and the second of those was with Portus funding support. And in that respect, just the one possible issue to raise is at 4.5 in the play area development programme. The board will be aware that that there is money in the approved capital programme. The play facilities earmarked for improvement are at Ostry Piccadilly, Annesley Common, at Brettsall Recreation Ground, Annesley Common and Coal End Park. And we've done some initial work looking at the potential developments at those sites. And we'll bring a more detailed report back to your meeting in January.
Thank you. Could I also go to 4.4, which is the biodiversity and climate change? And members will remember that we've agreed to set up a group for this. Obviously, it's been delayed, but we've now got Councillor Clues chairing that, Councillor Tony Clues chairing that. And the membership will be 3 from the Conservative group and 2 from Labour. The Conservative members will be Councillor Marion Humphreys and Councillor Kerry Parker. I'm not sure if the Labour group know who theirs are. If so, please let us know. Otherwise, you can let us know later.
Yeah, Margaret, that will be Councillor Deakin and Councillor Goslin will be representing Labour.
That's great. Thank you very much. Welcome to the group. And just so the other members know, whilst we've got 5 members who will be the group's membership, these meetings will be open to all councillors with an interest in this area, and I'm sure they'll be welcome to the meetings. A schedule of meetings will be established as soon as possible. Thank you. Right, are there questions? Councillor Rose, have you got a question on the report generally?
Yes. I was just going to comment. Simon's saved me a job by mentioning about Polesworth Parish Council and the new play area, which was co-funded by North Warwickshire Borough Council. It was to comment on 5.4.2 that we've had lots of positive feedback from residents in Polesworth in relation to the tennis court refurbishment, which has been really positive. And hopefully at Abbey Green Park we will be able to get the green flag status that we've worked hard for in terms of sort of creating the new management plan. And we're looking to sort of get the community involved with Warwickshire Wildlife Trust as well. And I've done a bit of promoting that and managed to get 10 volunteers signed up to volunteer at Abbey Green Park, which has been really positive. And I think the only question I've got really was in relation to 4.3.2, where it says that in the period covered by the report, 56 trees were felled. I just wondered if we're planted any trees as well. When trees are felled, are we planting trees in their place?
Thank you. Simon? Simon. Becky's pointing at Simon, so it must be Simon.
Thank you, Becky. We are endeavouring to plant trees to replace those that have felled. I can't honestly put my hand on my heart and say that we've replaced them all. We've done some work with community groups to source trees through various schemes and that sort of thing. And we're looking at how we can address that issue. It's been raised within the board before, and it's still a matter that we've to get to grips with, to be honest, Chair.
Thank you. Members might also be interested to know that there's a very active group in Annesley to, I think it's retree. Sorry, it's a terrible word, but they want to reclaim their part in of the Arden Forest, and so there's lots of plans to plant trees both along the highway and also in recreation areas. So that is going on at the moment. I think it's at the planning stage, so that should be good. I'm not sure, Councillor Gosling, whether you know more about that.
They've recently been gifted 40 trees, I believe, which with the 12 that we put at the bottom of the sports centre probably ticks off your 52. But yeah, and I also know I think it's one of those things that we probably don't really pay attention to. I know there's been significant trees planted on the allotments in Arley as well. So actually, I strongly suspect that we are well over the tit for tat kind of nature of it. But I don't know whether or not it's all recorded in the council. It might be quite interesting to keep a record. So.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. Les.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Many years ago, we ran through a scheme, which I'm sure Simon will remember, where we encouraged children and schools to get involved in tree planting. I realise these times are very difficult now and probably impossible, but I think at that time it was quite successful. I remember going out somewhere and I was knee deep in mud and all sorts, but so I remember it well. I don't know if Simon would like to make any comment on that.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, that was possibly at the start of the National Forest Initiative, and we planted hundreds and hundreds of trees across the borough in all sorts of locations, on golf courses, recreation grounds, and the like. Sadly, not many of them survived that particular process, which is disappointing. But clearly, in terms of future tree planting initiatives, then we would like to get communities involved, including young people. It would be the right way to go.
Good, thank you. Councillor Gosling, you've got a question?
Yeah, just the the Wildlife Trust offer tree packs on a yearly basis that do give out 410 trees, I think it is, to community projects. But from experience, the problem is actually the maintenance and the ongoing upkeep and adopting the trees when they are quite expensive once they get going. So from experience, it's that's the barriers, not the actual getting of the saplings. So,
thank you, Mr. Dobbs, Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, members will not be surprised to hear that tree planting is likely to form a significant part of Warwickshire's response to climate change and the need to take action on that. I've been in discussions with tree strategy officers at county level, specifically on a climate change and carbon offsetting basis in terms of more activity in this area. So it's certainly something that we'll be looking at with the Task and Finish group, obviously in consultation with colleagues in leisure as well. But it will form, I'm sure, a significant part of our work to offset carbon, as well as adding to biodiversity and that sort of thing as well. So it is something that's in hand at county level as well as locally.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments from councillors? Thank you. So going to the recommendation. Members note and comment upon the progress made in respect of the implementation of the priorities of the North Warwickshire Green Space Strategy 2020 to 2033. Have I got a proposer?
Councillor Jarvis, happy to propose.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Chair. Councillor James.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll take that as voted for unless there are any objections or anyone wishes to vote. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the Health and Wellbeing Action Plan. So, right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this? Councillor Gosling.
Yeah, it's still slightly concerning. I'm glad to see the drop in under 18 conceptions, but I think it's still slightly concerning. When you look at it, we look as if we're in line, but our population is half of, Stratford and Warwick's at least. So the levels, I think, are still quite high. I think the reduction is brilliant to see, but I still think we need to be very aware that that is a significant issue in our area.
Absolutely, I agree with you. There's been a bit of an issue during the lockdown. I think they're trying to get the services back up and running. So the service was moved. You remember we've got the health store, which is focused on lots of things, but including teenage pregnancy. And that was moved from Ratcliffe Road to the health centre near the leisure centre in Atherstone. And I think the plans are now to get that back up and running again. We were sorry to see it closed for a while. But I agree with you, Councillor Gosling, it's a very important area. And I am worried that if the figures drop, people will think we don't need it. But I think we need to explain that the figures have dropped because we've got the facilities. So, we do invest in this area. We do fund this clinic. So we need to make sure it's operating. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Councillor Jens.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I'm quite interested in 4.9, the time bank, because I'm reference to Atherstone and Manchester, but I'm actually working with county council officers at the moment to try to establish a time bank in Kingsbury, which is making reasonably good progress. But obviously, the fact that there's already a time bank in Atherstone and Manchester is of quite interest to me. So if I could gain any sort of knowledge or information from that would be quite useful at the moment.
Becky?
So the time bank in Atherstone Manchester is just a 12-month pilot. So they are looking at joining in with the Kingsbury Arley one that County Council are working on. So I'm happy to kind of bring you into those conversations as well. So they should complement each other. They shouldn't clash.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pass comment really in relation to 4.83 and borough care, just to say how positive it is that the service has been able to sort of diversify in the sort of difficult times we faced recently and continue to provide support to those older and more vulnerable people who need that support. I think it shows what a vital service it is in terms of sort of tackling loneliness and isolation. I think that's particularly important considering the current climate we're in as well. So I just wanted to sort of just say how positive it is that they've been able to diversify and continue to provide that support to those in need in the community. So, yeah.
Councillor Gosling.
Yeah, just to go back to the time banking. One of the suggestions that I had recently, I don't know if Becky would be interested, we were having a discussion, is there any chance that it could be backdated to give credit to some of the volunteer work that was done over COVID, because we thought this might increase people's interest and maybe draw people in. It'd be very good for engagement if we could possibly backdate some of those time banking hours to people that we know have already contributed.
Yeah, through you, Chair. But I think that's a really good idea, and I'll have a word with county colleagues and get that linked up. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth exploring that.
Good, thank you. There's just a couple of things I'd like to comment on. On 453, these are the health checks. Members will remember that we were doing, through Fitter Futures, health checks, particularly on blood pressure And we do have an issue in North Warwickshire on hypertension, high blood pressure, to we non-clinical people. And lots of people just don't want to know, basically, whether they've got it or not. So, trying to go out to people and persuade them to take a blood pressure check is really important. And I want to see that up and running as soon as possible. And I note that we did some of that in our leisure centres as well, which I was really pleased to see. So we'll be putting pressure on, it's actually the county who let that contract, so we're putting pressure on them to continue to do that. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is on 4.10. Now, you can see there that we have now got 5 personal air quality monitors, and I'm meeting with the environmental health officer this week to talk about how they will be deployed across the area and what priorities. And I'm quite happy, Councillor Rose, to talk to you about this so we can agree how those should be deployed and how we'll get the data from them and what we expect to get. I think there's quite a lot of questions around this. This is going out across the county now. It's a county council initiative, but I think we have got air quality issues in our borough and we need to decide where the priorities are. So we'll be reporting back on that later. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Marion Humphries.
Through you, Chair, you've just beaten me to both of the things I was just about to bring up, so I was quickly writing there and didn't see. So, yes, you brought up both the things I was going to mention, so thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? Just looking at my board, can't see any. Thank you. So going back to the recommendation, that the board notes and comments upon the progress made in respect of the delivery of those commitments identified in the Health and Wellbeing Action Plan. I've got a proposer. I'll propose it from the chair. I've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gosling. Councillor Humphries got there first. So again, I'll take that as agreed unless there's anybody objecting. Thank you very much. We'll move on then. Thank you. Which number are we on now? I think we've got the minutes now. Is that the next one on the agenda? Yes, the minutes of the Health and Working Party Group, Health and Wellbeing Working Party Group from the 8th of July. Councillor Humphries, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
Just a few, thank you, Chair. Just Simon, thank you very much. This is he's gone. It's a very comprehensive report, and it's been a very, very difficult time for all of the leisure centres. So, thank you very much indeed. The community engagement, I think it's very important that we recognise the importance of the volunteers at this time, and how we need to keep the groups of the volunteers very active. Keep the engagement going. I know we are in the ward where I am, and I'm sure other wards are keeping the volunteers going, but because we are going to need them. So I'm keeping a list of my volunteers, and with the list for the residents is growing as well. So the Indigo buses, I've been on to Jeff Clark, the Cabinet portfolio holder, and I'm trying to get evidence that they're not completely covering the service that they should be. So if anybody in their borough has got any, in their wards have got any residents that are complaining about the Indigo buses, can they please let me know, or write to Jeff Clark themselves and let him know, because I'm going to be meeting with him in a couple of months. It's hard to say whether they're working because of the pandemic. People aren't using them, so the outcome is going to be skewed anyway. But it's not working for the actual journeys to get children from home to school or to college, and those are the most important journeys we've got to cover. So I would be very grateful for any information. Air quality, we've already covered. Immunisations, I think that's very important. The GP surgeries I've covered are still giving immunisations. The immunisation programme is being covered during the pandemic as well. So if anybody in their area is actually having problems with immunisations, I think they ought to let us know and we can follow it up. It was noted from the most service has been passed you the pound. Concern was raised regarding the Respect Yourself website. Oh yes, what's happened to the Respect Yourself website, please? Does anybody know? Can anybody help me with that?
Becky?
Through you, Chair. So it is still under review, and we do keep asking. It was taken down after a series of complaints about the content. So we are still waiting for that, but we will keep asking the question to try and get it back up and running.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's covered it very quickly because a lot of it's already been covered. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marion. Are there any questions to Councillor Humphreys? Any comments? All right, thank you very much. So moving on then to item 10, I'll give it its proper name, the Sub-Regional Materials Recycling Facility, otherwise known as our Smurf.
Every time.
We're determined it's going to be blue. You realise that, don't you?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, and to Mr. Dobbs, if you'd like to just let us know where we are and what the next steps are, that'd be very useful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We know what colour the facility is going to be and what colour the roof is, I think, at this rate, certainly. Which will be something I'm sure they'll discuss at planning. We are entering a key phase for the Smurf. Might as well join in. It's going to planning on Thursday of this week, so clearly that's an important milestone for the project. And we're also nearing the point at which we will get final submissions and final pricing, therefore, from civils contractors and process equipment engineers, and we're expecting those within the next few weeks. So we will have a much clearer idea of where we are and the next steps in terms of implementation. At the moment, all the figures are looking good in the sense that it should be within what's termed the affordability envelope. So there's still a lots of detail to work through when those final submissions are made, but at this stage I'm confident that we'll have affordable and workable solution from at least one, if not more, of the providers who are at this final bidding stage. So I'm happy, obviously, to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Could you remind us about who the partners are in this and who's working with us on it, please?
Yeah, no problem. So as well as NorthWarks, we've got Coventry, Walsall, Solihull, Stratford, Rugby and Nuneaton, and I believe that Warwick are in the process of joining the project as full partners as well. It's obviously going through their democratic process at the moment, but they are hopeful that by the middle to the end of November they will also be on board as full project partners as well. So those are the main partners in the project, but in addition we are also talking to a number of authorities around the area about them providing material for the facility once it's up and running. So there's some very good conversations being had with other counties and districts around the region as well, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lees?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to bring up fly tipping. I don't know where to which item to bring that into. I can't see anything relevant to it, but I'd like to speak on fly tipping.
Okay. Councillor Lees, you can, as it's Mr. Dobbs' area, I think we can bring it up here if you wish.
Thank you. Richard, I know that we've been working with Keith Evans and yourself, but we're getting fly tipping quite a bit in Hartshill. Also, the councillor, it must be costing quite a bit now. We're putting up cameras, and as soon as we're putting them up, they're being stolen. So
through the board, I don't know whether anybody got any ideas what we could do, but it is a big problem. As soon as we put a camera up, they steal the camera and the fly tip, and it's just going on and on and on. We're just going around in circles. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I wonder if I'll ask Mr. Dobbs to respond to it, but I just wonder whether this could be a specific item on the next agenda where we can look at the figures to see where we are and what strategies have worked and what we could try across the borough. Mr. Dobbs.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, as Councillor Lee says, that this is it has been a problem since the start of lockdown, and a problem not just experienced by NorthWarks. We've seen it across the board. There's been an increase in fly tipping, and we are deploying cameras. As Councillor Lee says, they are being removed in certain areas. We're speaking to the police. We've got a good relationship with the local rural crime team, so we're moving forward in that area. Some members will be aware that the Safe Communities subgroup is looking at the fly tipping action plan that's in place. And there are a number of initiatives going on that support that and try to deliver improvement in fly tipping in terms of our response and publicity and promotion, enforcement and that sort of thing. We are looking at different camera technologies, permanent cameras, but also cameras that can be accessed remotely and that track, so that if they are removed, we can see where they've gone to and they can feed back without actually being retrieved. So that is the sort of technology we're looking at to try and stay one step ahead of fly tippers. So we are working in that area, and Robert Beggs, from a policy perspective, is looking at that as well as colleagues within Streetscape. So it is something we're looking at from a number of angles to try and get on top of this.
Thank you. So I think if we could agree then that that would be an item on our next agenda, so we can look at this in detail. That would be very useful. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Comments? Thank you. Well, in that case, we'll go back to the recommendation, which is members note the contents of the report, and I'll just add to that we will bring the topic of fly tipping to the next agenda. Can I have a proposer for that?
I'll propose that, Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Jarvis, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Lee's proposed, Councillor Jarvis second. Thank you. And again, I'll take that as agreed unless anyone indicates otherwise. Thank you very much. So that's item 10. Moving on then. Thank you. To item 11, which is the progress report on the corporate plan to March 20. So you've got the data in front of you. Mr. Powell, is there anything you want to say, Simon?
I don't think so, Chair. I'm happy to take questions on any of the content, either myself or obviously Richard will.
Thank you. Any questions on that one? Comments? No. Okay. So again, members consider the performance achieved and highlight any areas for further investigation. Have a proposer, please. Councillor Humphreys, seconder. Okay, I'll second that from the chair then. Again, I'll take that as agreed, unless there's any indications. Thank you. Thanks very much. So move on now to item 12, which is again the progress report on the achievement of the corporate plan and performance indicators from April to June this year. So I think it's quite clear the impact of COVID on this one. Any comments or questions? Just looking to see if I've got anybody. No. Right, thank you very much. So again, a recommendation, members consider the performance achieved and highlight any areas for further investigation. I've got a proposer.
I'll move the recommendation, Chair. Councillor James.
Councillor Jens proposed and seconded by.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Again, I'll take that as agreed unless any objections to that. Thank you very much. That's the end of the agenda, members. Thank you. Thanks very much. And thank you for your attendance and for your comments. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you. Could you stop broadcast now, please? Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Good night, all.